let's bring you another real-life case study now. This one is from Do, a telco in the UAE, and we have Andrew Ward from Do chatting now to contributing analyst at TM Forum, Tony Poulos.
Hi, I'm here today with Andy Ward, who's the Senior Vice President for ICT Business at Do in Dubai. Andy, welcome. I'd like to talk today about cloud adoption, because it's been a hot topic for years now, but many businesses are yet to make the move. Many have adopted a multi-cloud approach, as we know, and others are looking to migrating and managing their entire cloud estate on one unified single platform. I'd like to investigate that a little further with you. Firstly, why should organizations consider adopting a multi-cloud approach?
Yeah, great question, Tony. Obviously, there's lots of hype around multi-cloud, but let me give you some key points. One is reducing vendor lock-in, right? So if you look at some of the legacy, I won't name names, but typical vendors out there where you've had lock-in, you obviously grow and you had this massive estate and you're locked in, you can't change. Multi-cloud allows you to obviously break some of that lock-in, spread your workloads across multiple providers, and therefore you'll never you've got the agility and flexibility, should we say, that you maybe didn't have in the past. So I think that's one of the key ones. The other one is cost efficiency, because if you think about being able to cherry pick the very best either applications or services out there, rather than kind of one size fits all, you can actually cherry pick across multiple cloud estates there and providers worldwide to make sure you get the best value for money and performance. The other byproduct you get of that, of course, is then the inherent improved disaster recovery and business continuity that you get, because obviously many hyperscalers themselves all have redundancy built in anyway. So you really do get to diversify your overall business disaster recovery perspective. And last but not least, I would say also managing your cloud sprawl. To your point earlier when we opened up that most people are already in cloud, most CIOs and CTOs I know and you speak to, they're continuously discovering applications out there, right, that you didn't know you had. So, managing that sprawl in one umbrella, one single pane of glass is exceptionally important, especially when you think about security, compliance, and governance. So it really allows you to manage your overall cloud footprint.
Well, that's pretty good for the multi-cloud approach, but let's look at the unified cloud managed environments. And what are the benefits there? Is there greater agility or increased control if you're on one unified platform?
Yeah, exactly. So you've got the ability to move workloads between different platforms. You've got obviously the scalability as well. So you can move your workloads and applications from different providers for redundancy. So there's multiple benefits you'll get about unifying that approach and managing your estate.
Is there better data flow in the unified platform, or things like analysis? Is it easy to do that? And what about security? We're talking now about sending stuff from the core to the edge for processing. Are these all issues that are managed better in a unified environment?
Yeah, it's a great one. So firstly, let me take your point about data. Data is key, but data is only good if you can actually enhance it, leverage it, and analyze it, right? And obviously, when you've got sprawl and different applications all over the place, you can't leverage it. So you could be sitting on a potential gold mine of data, right? But you can't get to it. The good thing about creating a unified approach and leveraging what you've already got is obviously you start to get the visibility of that. You can draw the data together and then get machine learning and AI to kick in to really gain the commercial insights from that data. But until you do unify it, it's very hard to really truly get to that utopia where you can manage and leverage that data.
And with the multi-cloud management side of things, what are the tools that are available to us? I know we've talked about platform as a service and containers being so essential, but how do we ensure rapid growth, innovation, even things like governance on a multi-cloud environment?
Yeah, I would say it all goes back to understanding your data. So if you take it sort of right back when we normally sit down with any of our global customers, or in particular government customers within the UAE, it's all about the data. So understanding your data before you go on that journey. Where is it? What's the importance of it? What's your criticality of the data? Is it data sovereignty kicks in? Does it have to stay within the country? If you start looking at then, for example, core or non-core data, what are you okay to be sitting in the public cloud or not? So once you start with that kind of data set, you understand what you have and what you can do with that data and where it should go. And then you can start mapping what your cloud strategy would be, how you can unify it, how you can pull it together. The other key point, though, and you mentioned it on your previous question, was security. And I really want to go back to when you start to understand your data and the classifications, you've got to think about security day one. Now, the good thing, of course, about cloud security is that you can now create that holistic umbrella that you need to do from security. So I know lots of hype and lots of interest, and we're behind that around multi-cloud, but a big part of it is also making sure you have the security estate and the governance wrapped into that, because with the visibility you get across all of your private cloud or public cloud or multiple hyperscalers, it's all good and fine. But again, you've also got to wrap in that visibility and control from a security, governance, and compliance, right? But that's the nice thing about the tool sets now available. You start to really get the insights and control that, candidly, it's very hard to do even in the enterprises you have today, right?
In the multi-cloud environment, I'm just wondering how or who do enterprises go to manage those multi-cloud environments? Are they coming to their telco? Are they coming to people or companies like Do to do that and provide those security services across the multi-cloud environments? Or are they looking at third parties or systems integrators to help them out?
Yeah, great point, Tony. I would say, honestly, all of the above. I think most of the biggest CIOs, and again, not just unique to the UAE, but globally, but certainly locally here, there's a talent shortage, right? If you look at really good security perspective and really good analysts, if you start looking at cloud people, they're really hard to find, especially if you think about the domain sets you need. You need ideally someone who's up to speed on Amazon, Azure, Google, etc., SAP, the list goes on. Everyone's chasing the same talent. So I would say the good thing about a service provider like ourselves or a telco is that we bring the scale, breadth of services. So in some ways, you can leverage the scale and best practice from an organization like ourselves and the partnership and ecosystem we bring to the bear, and we can take some of that headache for you. So I think most CIOs and C-level, they know where they need to be. They're all completely drunk the Kool-Aid, to use that analogy, around where they want to get to the multi-cloud, but it's hard, right? And also understanding which technologies and having that experience in-house is costly, and to retain the talent is quite tough. So I would say system integrators and companies like ourselves are well positioned for that. And I would say certainly from a telco perspective, many people are coming to us as well, because you start looking at connectivity as a key component of the multi-cloud. It's only really as good as the fabric and the network connectivity around that estate as well. So I would say certainly, we are exceptionally busy right now around cloud and security, as many customers really want to go on that journey. And obviously on the back of COVID, and I know many people keep using this adage, it's the fastest accelerant for digital transformation. But honestly, the last year, really, we've seen a significant shift. So it's not just discussion anymore. It's about how do I get there, right? And I think that's why a good partner ecosystem is key to any company, large or small, really, to go on that journey.
We touched earlier on the importance of the data, of course, and that includes cloud analytics and optimization of the services being crucial to ensuring high performance across multiple cloud environments. But how is that done? We talked about data normalization, but is the enterprise itself looking at doing that, or are they asking for third parties to help them? This must be a massive task, analyzing all of that data across multiple platforms.
Totally, and it's easier said than done, right? To be honest, because obviously if you're born in the cloud or a cloud native company, it's relatively straightforward to do. But most, estates or established enterprises have got a whole plethora of applications, from in-house, homegrown, you name it, to cloud-based. And centralizing that data in itself is a hard task. And then obviously rationalizing it is an even bigger task. So I would say that, as a part of any kind of cloud transformation happening right now, it all starts with the data, and a big part of that. And equally, you can't get to the point where you've either gone on an optimization or journey until you've worked out what you're looking to gain from the data. Again, the classification, and how do you mine that, and how do you pull it all together? The good thing about obviously a comprehensive, should we say, cloud journey, you can solve for a lot of that as you go on.
It's very daunting for a big company and big enterprises to look at cloud and look at the multi-cloud and unified platform strategies. But how are the small enterprises coping? Are they just going in and doing one thing like accounting systems and then growing into a cloud environment? What triggers small enterprises to get into the cloud?
Yeah, that's interesting. So we've taken quite a lot of local companies on that journey in the last year. And I mentioned about COVID before, but we've seen a local insurance company, quite well established. I can't give you the name, but effectively they've gone from pretty much everything on-prem in their own data center or what have you, to suddenly with the disruption of obviously COVID, they've had to move all their staff to work remotely. They've had to literally centralize, I mean, you name it, talk about disruption. And the other challenge that they've had and others have had is you can't, a lot of these legacy, it's not just technology. It's the policies, procedures, delegation of authorities that used to happen in an office-based environment. They don't happen anymore, right? So you don't have that paper-based trail. So overnight, you've had to rationalize both your processes and business operations and business processes, and then digitizing it. So the smallest companies we've seen to have almost done a cold, hard cut straight to a cloud system where they've gone all in, literally from almost scrapping legacy straight to the greenfield, complete cloud journey, cybersecurity transformation, you name it, and business processes overnight. So we've seen some very bold moves, but very successful actually, where they've gone completely hard cut because they had no choice, right? It's either evolve or die, really, from a transformation perspective.
You sort of touched on my next question, which was what are the benefits of hosted solutions on both public and private cloud, and are they different? I mean, obviously, improved resiliency must be one of them, and business continuity, but is it that simple, just moving over? Are there other benefits? Are there cost benefits as well?
Yeah, I think there's cost benefits. I mean, some of it's, of course, intangible. But if you think about, see virtual desktop, the adoption of that's gone through the roof. The ability now to literally any web browser, you can access all your content, all your video, you name it. You can work from anywhere. And I think we've all seen it. It's liberating, right? And also it's proven that you really can run businesses remotely. So yes, you can do there's benefits of cloud solutions. But if you start looking at the redundancy, the resiliency, and also the security you can still maintain all the way to the edge, regardless wherever your employees are, it's pretty powerful. And if you take a step back for a second, I mean, you couldn't do that without hosted cloud solutions, right? If you think the benefit, the resiliency, the redundancy, obviously there's inherent cost savings you can get from it, but it's also about the agility. And if you think about smaller companies you mentioned earlier, so now you can also pay for what you use, right? So as you onboard new staff, it could be telesales or help desk staff as you ramp up in busy periods. Literally, you can give them an account of where you go, and then you can scale it down at the end of your busy season. So I think we'll never go back to the way that some of these, the businesses used to go, because even some of the diehard, should we say, companies that are resistant to change and what have you, I think now it's forced a forced adoption of these technologies like nothing else, really.
Well, they might not be around in future. They may become the dinosaurs if they don't adopt quickly. But needless to say, regulation, compliance and management of sensitive data are all barriers or have been for cloud adoption. And how can organisations navigate around these barriers? Because they're pretty intense and pretty large areas to cover.
Yeah, Tony, I'm smiling, right? Because I've been in cloud since probably about 2008. And if you think about it, it's almost come full circle. At the beginning, it was brilliant, put it in the cloud, get full redundancy, no one cared. And then obviously as the government started to wake up, you can't tax, you can't legislate for what you can't control. You start to see more and more governance control coming in and caution. And now ironically, you're starting to see, the cloud nodes, as we know, the hyperscalers deploying almost every region and now almost every key geographic, financially important country. And obviously that spreads are going to keep continuing. So now it is about data. It is about understanding that data, but also critically data sovereignty, right? And I guess what does that really mean? I mean, that can mean many things from GDPR in the European Union. If you look at Germany, for example, certain data cannot leave Germany itself, maybe for tax regulations. And then you open it up, then the rest of the data can only stay within the European Union. So it's definitely changing. And in some ways, the cloud world is shrinking bizarrely rather than enhancing what it was a few years ago. But so I think what we're seeing now is kind of a hybrid, right? So back to the data when we started our discussion, what's important? Is it customer specific data? For example, Do is a regulated telecommunications company. Obviously, customer data has to, the same as banking or finance, has to stay within the UAE. Critically, you work out what is critical from a data sovereignty perspective, ideal for private cloud, either on-prem or with a provider like ourselves. And then you start looking at some of the non-core data, which isn't, it doesn't affect your intellectual property or doesn't affect any laws. So, and then you can start leveraging the hyperscalers, either in country, etc., or beyond. But it's definitely something that we're watching. It's definitely something that we're taking customers on that journey, because inherently it comes up right from day one. Actually, even if I'm okay now, where will maybe the laws be in 2-3 years' time? So whatever, using the ice hockey analogy, wherever the puck's going to go, I want to make sure as I go on my transformation journey, I'm going to be able to enforce that compliancy, whatever the regulations are at the time.
Andy Ward, thank you so much for helping me through that multi-cloud and unified platform cloud jungle. Thanks again.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Tony.